Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Trekkers and Trekkies all over the world. Welcome to the show. We're doing a Trek Thursday intro right here. We're breaking out the rest of the team. A couple folks are not here tonight, but we'll forgive them for the moment here. They have other obligations, other things happening. You know what? Real life, heaven forbid. I am your host, the Strategic Operations Officer, Captain Marshall. My first officer here, who's the Chief of Logistics, Captain TimberWolf.
How's it going?
The Chief Science Officer, who's snipey, could not make it tonight, but we do have here our guest Chief Mathematician and Pro ScimiTank, Vel, aka JarvisandAlfred. We have over here, to my other left, the Chief of Nasty Plagiarism, but big-time bomberism, Scott. Scott, say hi.
Hey, what's up?
All right.
Plagiarism, what the heck?
What? You don't know what you're talking about. Be quiet.
What's this plagiarism that you're talking about?
Plagiarize DPS, that's what you do. Anyway, the Chief of Cheesy Tactics, Captain Spencer, a.k.a. SOB, that big old SOB, is going to be here. Like I said, our Chief Intelligence Officer, Captain SarcasmDetector, had a nice guest host slot over on Priority 1 Radio, so I urge you all to check it out when it is released. Support our man, SarcasmDetector. Enjoy the show. We're going to jump right into it right now. We have, for us right here, a response from the dev concerning the law of pearls, the Pearlgate scandal right now. Really? What do you guys think about Salami pretty much regulating and saying, look, here's the olive branch that I'm willing to give everybody here. And for those who can't read it, here's what they're going to do. Salami's given pretty much the background on why he's making the change or wants to have this change made, which I could see some justification off of it to a degree. But here's where his more or less concession to everybody is, and I agree with it here. And I quote Salami here: "We will be making every event ship you've ever earned and every event ship moving forward towards account unlocked, forward total account unlocks, excuse me. As soon as one character on your account owns a ship, every single other character on your account that exists now or you will ever create will have immediate access to any event ship you've earned. There will be no need for your alts to play the event mission, no hoops to fly through other than picking up the ship from the store. Hopefully, taking this extra step will address any lingering concerns you have with the overall change. Thanks for reading this far, and I look forward to seeing you on Ryza soon." Personally, I think that was a decent consolation as far as making the adjustment this quickly without any sort of real advance notice to kind of say, okay, look, this is an event. Henceforth, no more banking up whatever event currency there is and having it applied to next year's event of the same time period. I think this is a decent consolation, considering that most of the people were having an issue with not getting the ship at all. Thoughts, gentlemen?
The first thing I would say is I really like that because I know a lot of people that are veterans have made Delta recruits, and I think part of the concern was that their Delta recruits wouldn't be able to get access to all of these ships.
Okay.
I don't understand the need to take away the pearls, but I would say that so far, when unhappy changes like this have been made, or when things such as the Dilithium weekend occurred, he's done a good job at responding and not simply saying sorry, but also giving the players something very tangible and relevant to the situation in response. So,
I do. Oh, I'm sorry, Val. I was just gonna simply agree with that. This does kind of solidify that if you haven't earned the event ship previously, you're not gonna have access to it. And that was one question that was posted on the forums a lot. Was, oh well, all previous event ships will be unlocked entirely and all this. No, it's if you've earned it, you'll have access to it. If you haven't earned it, then you're not gonna have it because you didn't earn it previously. But he explained it so very well that everybody knows going forward, once you earn anything, it doesn't matter if it's a year from now and you stop playing and then you make an alt a year later, you still have access to that ship on an alternate character.
Well, what I want to know is my opinion here, why couldn't a decision like this have been made after the event? Like, I completely get where he's coming from with this. I completely understand his need to be able to have people show up for the event and actually participate in the event. I get that. Why couldn't it be done after the event? Unless there was some sort of, I don't know, complete mind-blowing speculation here. There's some other external pressure saying we must have people show up for this event for this new thing.
I think it just fits in with the trend of what they've been doing recently. If you look at like the Dill Weekend changes, where they made it so that only things that you earn during that event count towards the bonus Dill, so no like turning in marks or anything like, or doing rep for that, because people would save up their reputation T5s. It fits with the general theme of what they're trying to do, which is encourage active gameplay. But in this case, I would say I don't see it as much, because with the whole marks issue, you would get marks year round, like regardless if you were just playing the game, you'd just save it for that optimal time. But with these, the only time to do it was during the summer event. You would only do it for the sake of the summer event, so I don't quite see the link as much.
All right, well, what about the rewards, though? I mean, there's going to be compensation for those people who banked up pearls, like skill points, which for some people may be a boon, for other people be like, whatever. You can buy R&D boxes with it. You can buy these ultra cool emotes that, thumbs up, yo. I don't know. What do you guys think?
When it comes down to it, with what they're offering, I mean, it's really going to depend on the person. Like for myself, my main character that I have, because I didn't myself push and do a bunch after I got my ships. I kind of stayed away from Risa because of how much lag that's there generally. So once I got my ship, I got off. So I only have like 11 pearls that was left over. So I can go do 11 boxes with the 500 and some spec points, and that's about it. And that captain's not even level 60 yet, so it's one of those things. For me, it's not a big thing, but I can see where if someone's got enough to get a few points, especially if you had enough to almost get a ship, you can get yourself a couple points that would be able to save you some time and a lot of grinding. So for those people, it's a huge potential point for saving that time and getting caught up on things.
I agree, and I see from the other hat, I'm nowhere near the level of max where I remember once you maxed out, you got dilithium every time you get a spec point. I've seen it on Tribble where it still counts, where if you get spec points after a certain level, you still get dilithium. So for those people that have maxed out, they can trade in pearls basically for extra dilithium. Not a lot, but they can still trade it in. You have the option to do it for alts for their spec points. You have, your R&D boxes. You even have the tech upgrades. And for me, that's a lot of positive things that they're trying to do to compensate. Well, you can't use these, but here is a nice set of options to go with. Personally, the only thing I wouldn't go after is the emotes, especially considering they're going to be in the Latinum store. And the only purpose, in my opinion, I see them for is ready up instances, or maybe trying to be ready for a specific event, a specific RP session. But I can see for some people it's a lot better than just putting R or ready in the chat, or it's a great way of saying hello to someone instead of typing it out.
The amounts are really interesting because on the one hand, I can see them getting abused to death in pugs, but as just a form of annoyance spam. But I'm also not convinced that the people that are in pugs and not doing well would have ground for extra pearls. So it's going to be interesting to see them. It's also going to be interesting to see if there's a method to block them, like the Subspace Party on fire.
All right, so if we have this coming up here, with this, as far as, okay, we're going to have ship unlocks for everything, let's actually shuffle this a little bit around. What about lockbox ships? Are we going to, or should it be fair to also include lockbox ships? So we're going to do account-wide unlocks for event ships. Why not lockbox ships?
For the cost, of lockbox, low B promotional ships, you pay more for a ship for a single character than you may pay for an entire 9-pack. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's an account-wide unlock for the C-Store ships, but with these ships, they may have a trade on them, and who wants to go spend $500 million EC to get a Shazar on each tune that they want to trade on?
We would definitely be in favor of this. I have one character of mine has an adapted Battlecruiser and Recluse. I would very much like to have the adapted Battlecruiser available on other characters, but I'm not certain that it's worth the cost of the ship again. I have a Recluse on 2 characters, which was a frustrating experience to buy the ship twice. And as much as I know all of my engineers would love access to a Shashar, because it is an incredible ship, it's just absurd to think that you would buy that ship twice. I would be in favor of it.
Yeah,
or some people will get lucky and get it 3 times over.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. The account wide would be fantastic, especially considering the sheer amount of money you might spend just at the chance of a lockbox ship or the event ships that they've come out with, which typically are rare. So you're spending quite a bit of money, and if you can have that as an account wide unlock, that's a tremendous investment. Instead of it just you're spending money, you've got an investment that you can actually put into. And I think that would sound better, in my opinion, to players. They're making an investment in a ship that they can use on any character and use multiple characters to experiment with that same ship.
I think it would probably actually improve lockbox sales, because I would say very few people buy a lockbox or Libby ship on multiple characters, but I think a lot more people would be willing to start going for those expensive ships if it wasn't just for one of their characters.
So you're saying it would be more worthwhile for the money spent if they say, okay, if I get the ship, it's unlocked for my entire account, so all my tunes have access to it, therefore I should spend money to get this because there's a much bigger return on my investment.
Yes,
See more people spending money for these ships.
Absolutely.
The great thing about them is they're complete account unlocks, not even faction lock ships. So that would also, in my mind, make up for the substantially increased price of these ships relative to C-Store fleet ships. And I think the number of people who would then stop buying duplicate ships on multiple characters, though I do know a few, I think those number of people vastly pale in comparison to the people that would start picking up those ships for a complete account unlock.
Yeah, I mean, I got plenty of characters that I'd love to drop one of my other ships onto, or drop the same ship onto. Like, for example, I got my torpedo build that I'm working on. I'd love to get a C-Shar on that, but I'm not going to go and get a $500 million EC just to do it. And it would be nice, and I would even be willing, if there was a dilithium cost, like 40,000 dilithium, I'd be willing to do that myself.
Well, I mean, I see where they would have the Zen sales for the promo boxes. I get that. They need to make their money, seriously, and I can support that. I think what we've more or less all agreed upon here is that Cryptic would get more money from us, the players, whether we buy regularly or lifetime subscribers, or like myself, or people just kind of look at it and say, I'm just going to refine a bunch of dilithium here and it'll work for 1 ship or 2 ships that I like. We would be more willing to spend money on one of these lockbox ships by buying the promotional boxes and trying to open them up, or spending the EC on it via buying keys, if we had an account-wide unlock once we have the ship.
And it's not just the ship itself, it's also the traits that are on them. I have tunes that I'm not even bothering with. I haven't bought any of the KDF ships that have came out recently because I'm not going to spend hundreds of millions of EC to buy my KDF tunes, the ships I already have on my main character.
So,
Yeah.
but if you had the opportunity to unlock it for an account-wide unlock, you would actually go and say, okay, you know what? This $30 or this $60 would be worth it.
Yeah.
Another thing that I would bring up here is my 1.5 main characters are engineers and tanks. I absolutely would not buy a lockbox or Lobby or promo ship for any of my other characters because I don't play them enough to justify a ship just for them that's that expensive. But I would have no problems running out and grabbing something like an adapted destroyer or a Dromius or a Manassa if I knew that all of my TAC captains could use it, not just the one.
Agreed.
Good point. Moving on with that, since we have been talking about the Shashar, surprise, surprise, the Shashar is out, command variant. Everything else, though, is exactly the same. Thoughts, gentlemen?
Well, and I brought this up before the stream. For you, Odin, the trait's the same, so it's still torpedo. And with command abilities, that typically a lot of them are torpedo exploits and suppression barrages. I could see with command, it's more of a torpedo boat. Granted, it's probably very sluggish. I haven't flown it personally, but it seems like it's more of a torpedo boat now. But it also, to me, speaks that they didn't want to have it where it's two completely different setups as far as the consoles, the weapons. They wanted to release the same thing and give the players the option of either or. So whoever got the Seshar the first time, they don't feel like they're missing out on their investment. Once again, going back to investment, they invested in the Seshar the first time. The second one's coming out, and they're not missing out on anything except command seating. And if they don't want command seating, then they don't have to spend the extra money for it.
Here's my basic problem. I own a Shashar. I use it to tank. Command is a significantly better tree for tanking, or specialization for tanking. For example, since I can use Suppression Barrage in conjunction with my attack patterns in Fall, that would make it significantly easier to tank in the ship because then everything I'm shooting at hurts me a lot less. And because these new boxes coming out give you the chance of picking an Intel Shashar or a Command Shashar, no matter what happens, I have an Intel Shashar, and I did not get that choice, it's frustrating. And I would say the more general fear that's already been voiced a lot on Reddit is that we already have, I think it's a Command Intel Geminar Strike Ship, and the whole Geminar Strike Ship issue aside, I think a lot of those people have already started to voice concerns that there will be a pilot Intel Strike Ship coming out, and that will be an innately better ship for about everything than a Command Intel Strike Ship was, and they would have to completely rebuy the ship. I think a lot of people would be okay even if they had to pay like 50 or 100 Lobi to get the option to switch now that the option's out. But the fact that they bought the ship when it was released and now other people are getting an option for the same cost that they didn't have is frustrating.
Well, I would say, for people like Scott who would want to build a torpedo boat, two traits in this game absolutely make it much better for you. Omega kinetic sharing and torpedo barrage that you get from the Shashar. Absolutely the best as far as making an all-powerful torpedo boat, especially if you're using high yield. You absolutely must want it, have it, dream it, live it, plan every strategy you can around it. It is that good. With that said, having a command ship with concentrate firepower and the way it's working right now is horrible for torpedo users when you're going up against shielded targets, and very good for torpedo users when you're going up against unshielded targets. For some old content, there are a lot of unshielded targets out there, so concentrate firepower will make you shine. For pretty much anything new, forget it. Everything in their mother's shielded to high heaven. Concentrate firepower is not going to do jack for you. That's my big beef with it. But as far as the ship itself, I mean, you could have multiple loadouts for it. You can make an all-energy weapon loadout for it. I personally have one. I just for fun, just make like a siege type of ship and just sit there and just torpedo spam the heck out of things with it and just high yield bomb. And it's pretty damn fun. I like it. I personally like it. Anything else on the Shashar? All right, we're moving on over here. Pretty much the quest to be lag free. Is that possible? Are they working towards it? I kind of see some things here where, wow, they made a hit list and they're starting to scratch it out. What do you think? TimberWolf, take it off.
Well, yeah, and I don't have the exact full patch notes. I think they're in chat, and I'll have to look them up. But they have acknowledged on Reddit that they are looking at the primary culprits. Command was obviously a big culprit. Attack pattern beta, they're saying, is the main secondary culprit they're looking at. And it all boils down to they've admitted that these older abilities and some of their newer ones are causing so many server performance issues that they are actually looking at fixing them, and they have started fixing them. And I've been able to show that on YouTube with just 2 videos. I showed it when the Preserver 3-piece set came out. We tested ISA, and there was rubber banding, there was lag issues. It was almost to the point where you weren't having fun. And then we just recorded one the other day, and with the exception of one minor lag spike, maybe 1 to 2 seconds, it was a beautiful run. And this was after they had stated in the patch notes that they had started working on these command abilities, they'd started working on server performance. And the difference in 1 week on mine, and I was seeing it from seeing and hearing it from other people, that the performance had gone up. And then with this week's patch notes, one of the big things that stood out, more server performance issues. They're doing a lot of background fixes that they're saying we won't notice, and this is something they had stated on Reddit. A lot of background fixes that we won't notice any differences, no changes to abilities, but they're going to fix it where there's less hindrance on the server. There's less things polling the whole server, and it's not going to be where, okay, well, if you see a certain type of ship running a certain ability in one shard, it's going to affect all subsequent shards. And it really seems like they are trying their best. And I've seen this in ISA, I've seen this in Gateway to Grethor, I've seen it even in sector patrols, where even a Tholian alert, and for a lot of people out there, they've run Tholian alerts, and it can get laggy, especially with some of the newer abilities. I ran one today, and I didn't see any lag whatsoever. And we had a command ship in there, and I think I might have seen a strike ship. So we have seen some improvements. The big thing, though, I've noted, is PvP is still very lag heavy. And I haven't seen anything yet as far as the PvP. It could be because of the sheer amount of players, the sheer amount of abilities. But 10, 20-man PvPs, those can get to the point of where PvE was a couple of months ago, where it was severe rubber banding and almost unplayability. But considering they are admitting, okay, we've got issues, we're trying to fix them, however slowly they are doing it, it seems like they've made a turn where they are actually trying to fix server performance at the expense of anything else, in my opinion. And I think it's a positive change. And the players have noticed it too.
Honestly, thinking it was going to be. I think some of us was expecting some of these changes to take months before anything got implemented.
I'm in total agreement. There has been a bit of soon trademark, all that jokes come out, but once they started talking about this about 2-3 weeks ago,
It looks like they're taking a very serious turn with it now.
I ran
Yeah.
a completely lag-free ISA, I ran a completely lag-free CCA, ran an almost completely lag-free red alert. It rubber banded at 1 or 2 seconds at the very end, and I did another completely lag-free red alert, and that was huge because I was one of those people you'd see in those videos where it was completely horrific, and the fact that they've got everything at least very significantly cleared up is very, very good in my mind.
I mean, I see it as a policy changer. It's something that we've been acknowledging for a while. It's even been acknowledged by the devs. Okay, you know, players for as far back as I can remember, it's your computer, it's your internet connection. Well, now it's actually been said by the devs, it's a problem we're having on our end, and we're doing everything we can to fix it. And just like I said, just my video of ISA where it was a beautiful run. I haven't seen ISA that clean and clear in months. To see that, it made the run 3 times more fun, despite the fact that I hit for myself a new high for DPS. It was just fun again to play. Now, one interesting note, I did find a ghost cube in that run, which I think is totally unrelated to anything, and probably they'll look into if it's ships that are spawning in other shards, other instances, or ghost spawning in the one you're in. But with the exception of that, it was a fantastic run. Most fun I've had in an ISA in, I want to say, a good 2 to 3 months easy.
Well, going forward, you know, they are looking like they're actually squashing every single bug that they can get their hands on. I don't know if you've seen the list, but, you know, here comes the list right now that they put on Twitter. It's not that legible, but you know what? Is it showing up for you guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on. There it is.
Okay.
And
yeah.
even seeing the scratch marks, that is an impressive list.
They're knocking it out. They've been knocking it out, and I have to give them kudos for that, for being able to handle that. That's coming from Salami Inferno and Bordicus, you know, praising Bordicus for pretty much just doing the job and doing it well. Now that he has the ability to focus on this and drill down and say, look, we need to deal with this. We need to optimize whatever code that we can get our hands on to make it work with the hardware that they have. I'm praising them right now for this type of effort. This is the stuff that they need to do in order to make the game enjoyable, so that we can say, yes, we support you both with our praise of the game as well as with our monetary contributions to the game.
Well, I've even seen it as a turning point, and I'll use World of Warcraft. It'll be one of my few times I'll ever compare the two games. But with World of Warcraft, and we were talking about this the other day, when they first started, they were having some of the same issues. They were having server issues. They were having lag issues. There were bugs galore. You know, they had been out for a few years. And when they finally started hunkering down and spending months on end fixing things, fixing the lag, fixing the servers, that's when their business turned around, and we see where they're at now. And for STO to start, even if it's a slow start, the amount of work they've already done so far is a positive sign that we could see, once it's all fixed, an increase in the player base, not just new players. It could bring back old players just as much, if not more, because they would see.
And
We brought back
with
Khan.
that,
We brought back Khan. That's the inside joke, folks, for those who do know. Khan's one of our favorite players we have, and pretty much within the STO community, he's kind of the subtle guy out there, but well known in the DPS channels for just being the man's man. He was frustrated with the way the game performance was, left for a while. They made their changes. He came back. And he's a stubborn man to convince. So if you can convince Khan, keep doing your work, devs. You're going to bring back more players, and we thank you for it. Keep doing it.
One thing I want to point out, though, that image of all those bugs crossed off was posted one day after the original picture of it being hung up.
They have time to focus, and somebody must have given them resources.
Must have. Because even though it's not really legible, it just seems like it's an impressive list, and for all we know, that's not the only page. They might just have that as a placeholder.
Salami actually made some comment along the lines of that was for one specific problem type, and that he was going to print out more pages and hang them up of the other major problem types. But either way, I liked the results of what went live this morning.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just be able to see it after 1 week, just one patch, and that much of an improvement. And now, here it is, week 2 of the same thing, more performance fixes, more patches that are making a positive impact. It's almost to the point where you just touch your computer as you're playing it and you're going, oh yes, the fun has returned.
Speaking of positive impacts, going in
Yeah.
the same direction of positive impacts, not many people would actually call delaying something a good thing. But here, the episode, The House of Pech, they're delaying it. And people are applauding them for doing it. Yes, you see, exactly. I didn't even need to say it. This is happening. People are applauding Cryptic for delaying a release of something.
Oh yeah.
The last time I applauded a company for delaying the release of something, I hate to say this, Blizzard Entertainment, way back in the day when they said we're not going to release this until it's ready. And everybody went, thank you. Because we are sick and tired of the gaming community of having to deal with bugs after bugs after bugs to meet some arbitrary deadline just to try and meet sales or metrics or both. We want you to be able to put out the content. We want you to be able to put out the content of quality and of something that is speaking to your talent. Don't shortchange yourselves and think that we're just going to put up with it and not say anything or do something about it. And if people are actively doing something about it, while they may be in the minority, can very much sway your bottom line.
Yeah.
Thank you for delaying this, showing that you want to care about your artwork, your coders, your developers, your server admins, your network admins, everybody out there who wants to come together as a team and make this thing happen. Do it justice, do it proud, and do us proud.
Yeah, and that was the other thing I did research on last night. I was, for this broadcast, I was looking at the forums because, and I can bring it up in my screen share right here. Give me just a second. I'm bringing it up in screen share right now, and you're seeing this is their release of, we're delaying it because of critical technical issues. It was tested. It wasn't where we wanted it to. We'd rather wait a week. And the big thing is, if I can highlight it right here, there may be frustration. There may be, animosity is basically what they're saying, but we want to put out a better product. Well, if you click this little link to the forums, 99.9% of those posts are positive. They're applauding. Take a week, take 2 weeks, take a month. We applaud the fact that you're willing to take the time to fix it. And it goes back to them taking care of things for server performance and for quality of content in this, what in my opinion is a U-turn. It's showing, okay, past couple of missions we released them, and when we released them we had bugs we had to fix. And the player base was more or less livid. And that's just seen on the forums. Now granted, forums bring out the worst in people, and I'll even admit that because you really just want to rant and rave. But to see from the last mission's forum posts about the bugs and the issues, to see where they're delaying for this release and people are they're cheering is tremendous, because people are willing to wait for the content once it's fixed. They're willing to wait. They don't care. And I'd be probably bold enough to say, if we were to wait a month for this episode to come out, after the summer event already started, and the next couple of weeks had nothing to do with this particular mission, it had nothing to do with the summer event, even though it's coming out, and all they posted was server performance issues, people, in my opinion, would be willing to wait a month to see the improvements and make for sure they had plenty of time to release a quality product.
Gentlemen, comments?
I think a month might be stretching it. I think there would probably be some people who would be upset next week. I think that's how the forums work. I personally wouldn't have any problem with a week or 2 weeks, and if you need a month to get the bugs out of it, that are, if there's major bugs that you don't have out, don't release it, basically.
Yeah. Because the only other thing that they posted about here was, in this right here, they're posting about a change to what you can grab as your rewards. And once again, we see something that they stressed with the pearls. a specialization point. So not only if you're a previous player leveling an alt, can you trade in pearls for spec points to level a character, or to get your spec points for your trees, you now can get up to 3 over the next 3 weeks to further enhance that, or you can get these universal tech upgrades. And that's not what they're releasing as far as what probably will be, a 3 or 4 piece set. They're also giving the option of upgrading a piece or a spec point. And to me, that once again, that's a bravo move.
As someone
And-
with 12 alt accounts, I now have a reason to run featured episodes. I don't incredibly much play Star Trek Online for this story. It's a good story. I mean, I'm not saying the story's bad. It's just that's not what gets me. But I'm absolutely going to be playing the featured episodes solely for the spec points at this point in time. I'm excited to see that.
And
I mean,
as a
granted.
tangent, so, go on.
Oh, the only thing I was going to add is the only drawback I see as I've been reading this up. It's still the 1 run, 1 tech upgrade, 1 skill point. So if you run it on an alt for the second time basically that day, you don't get the tech point, the upgrade. I feel it would have been better if it had been 1 per character for people that run alts and they want to have that extra things. But it also helps you focus on, do you need a tech upgrade for this character, or do you really need to focus on a spec point for this character? And maybe that's what a lot of people were doing with the tech upgrades, is they were trying to figure out which character should run the mission for the tech upgrade. Now they have this secondary option, so now they can funnel on a lower level character. But to me, I see it as, if you could do it on all your alts and get 1 spec point per alt, yeah, it's one heck of a grind, but it could be worth it for some players to have that option.
It would be nice. We're looking at post-level 60, 95 specialization points per character that you'll need to fully max out the tree on each character.
Agreed.
Which will only go up.
Yeah, it'll go up as time goes on.
Which, on a tangent, but still on a related note here, according to Laughing Trendy, this is not the solution for adjusting for experience beyond 60 to get these spec points. This is just something as an aside reward for either compensation or we're sorry for the delay.
Yeah, it was stated
this
as
is
not the norm.
solution. Yeah, this is not going to be the norm. This is just, here's our consolation or our peace offering to you, or we're sorry, whatever. So with that said, we're still going to be looking for what is going to be a tentative solution to the whole experience grinding bit, because
What
I run ISAs, I run GGAs, I'll run whatever, and I could hit 60 or 70 of those before I see a spec point. Wow.
What I'd love is if we could have an option to buy specialization points with dilithium. That would help balance out to the Guild Zen Exchange and give us an alternative method to level up.
And it'd end up being a cash cow almost, because people would be willing to spend the dilithium to upgrade their characters in that respect as well.
Do you honestly think, though, for as much as people would spend money on this, do you think they would actually allow this as part of their, okay, we can see this, well, people who want to pay to have this faster, here's your chance to do it.
With the rest of everything else, basically, I wouldn't be opposed to it, because I know by the time I get around to spending the 200-300 something K dill I've got saved up across my characters and upgrades, I can grind more dill a lot faster than I can get the spec points that I want for the characters that I'm upgrading with gear for.
Yeah. It's also backfiring too.
You muted yourself, Scott.
Yeah, and I don't know why I didn't mute it. But I can see this also being a backfire too for some people. For people who are thinking that this is just another pay-to-win type method.
Well, it's not pay to win. It's like most other things in the game where you're not paying for something you couldn't get by playing the game. You're just paying to get it faster.
Yeah, this is true, and that's kind of the concept that some people that I'd communicate with a lot are very opposed against, is that people can do it, and so if you can get all your spec points out at one shot just by paying $100, $200 or so, then there's going to be a lot of people that's going to be probably very opposed to stuff like that because of the fact that it is, in essence, you're paying so you can be at the top with your spec points, and I think there's a fine line to be treaded here if that was to be done, personally, because you have to be looking at every aspect, and there's going to be a lot of people who's going to be very opposed to that.
And I can see that, but it's. I'll go, Val.
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
I can agree with you, Scott, but at the same time, it like Spencer said, it's play to get faster, and if someone is willing to make that investment, then you can't fault them as a player that they want to make that investment to have the better stuff faster if they're willing to spend it. Now, the more casual players wouldn't be able to do it, or they wouldn't be able to do it as fast, and of course there'd be, ire and madness from them, but at the same time, you're spending, in this case, either you're spending all the stuff you've collected over the months or years, depending on how much you have, or you're willing to spend money to get Zen, your own paycheck to get Zen to do this.
To me, it's no different than with crafting. People pay
No,
to get
yeah.
15 immediately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's no different with any of those. It's just it just becomes another one of those things that people's going to complain about with the pay to win stuff. It's just another add-on that's going to happen if that was to be the case.
I think one of the important things would be to make it dilithium, because anytime you can make it use an in-game currency, you make that in-game currency more valuable, which is, I think you would want to focus on the in-game currency, because if, like it was mentioned about it being a dill sync, that would be a plus. Also, it's really not that different from, I was going to say, if you're a casual player, and I'm not in the current state of things, I'm going to just get spec points faster than you, because I am playing more than you, and I will get them faster. In this case, I just have a different method of getting spec points faster, and nothing has changed. Like, the existing state of any game that has a grind or pay option, like even either one, is that the casual player will not get things as fast as the hardcore player. I'm to an extent okay with that, and having this as an option instead of the only way, I think would be beneficial.
Yeah. And that was something I was talking with in the Fleet chat. I was in Fleet TeamSpeak earlier, and going with the trade-in, they actually made the suggestion, and I don't know what you guys feel about it, the suggestion of being able to trade in marks for different marks. For example, if you need a lot of Omega marks and you don't have the gear you want to run ISA or the Hive or anything like that, but you've run a lot of Dyson, you'd be able to trade in Dyson marks for its equivalent of Borg marks, or trade in fleet marks if you have a lot of them and nothing to contribute to a fleet. You can trade those in for the equivalent of one of the reputation marks, or vice versa.
I kind of see this going in as, if they implemented it, going in as a 5-to-1 ratio for something like that.
Yeah, I'm generally opposed to that idea, in part because you've got a lot of non-STF ways of getting marks, like Plethora, the different patrols. I think between ground zones, patrols, and metal alerts, you can get every kind of mark except possibly Echo. I'm not sure about that. The other thing is you can literally farm rep gear these days by failing queues, because you can turn the 10 rep marks you get from failing queues into the mega marks, like internal processors or whatever's, or you can turn it into dill. And so at this point in time, there's no one that is really seriously locked out of gear. Like, if you don't have the gear to play a normal STF, there's a serious problem. And you can get, you should be able to gear up to get advanced, like, you can't play advanced queues without rep gear. I don't see rep gear making a significant difference in your ability to play advanced queues, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the other thing I see happening is people are playing like Gateway Together Advanced. People are playing anything that's not infected in CCA because you have to get other marks. Like A and RA would have completely fallen off the map. I think I would have the queues would become more focused into the popular, easy to beat ones, and that would make a detrimental game experience for players that I can get any gear I want. I have the resources to form a team that can beat basically any queue in the game, except possibly Herald Elite. I'm not sure if that's been beaten yet, but I appreciate that other people need other marks and are willing to form queues other than affected in CCA with me.
Yeah. The other topic I was going to try and broach here, and this was within the same branch with the fleet, was the reputation store gear. Like, for example, your biomolecular disruptor beam arrays. The idea came up because it's been seen in other games where if you have something like that, something that's rare, you can, in a way, disassemble it and then learn how to craft it. Now, without going on their current, what they have, it has one less modifier. So if you crafted it, it would obviously have one less modifier. Do you guys think that would be a good idea to have in game, where if you were to disassemble it, you could craft a biomolecular disruptor or a Romulan plasma, one less modifier, and it cost maybe double the parts to craft it, and then it would be still same random modifiers versus buying a Mark 12 for the dilly cost and then hoping with all the tech points you get the modifiers you want.
I want to clarify one thing before we get started. Not all of the reputation gear loses a modifier. It's actually mostly the older ones. I think Thorium Polaron and Radiant Antiproton do not. But the straight-up dual proc ones, such as Romflans, which has the full disruptor, full plasma, or Protonic Polaron, which has the Protonic and the Polaron, those ones trade a modifier for a proc.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. You wouldn't get an extra. You'd still keep the same number. You'd just be able to craft them.
I just wanted to clarify that for a second.
Yeah, you'd still have at best Mark.
I just linked a post. Sporticus was actually talking somewhat about this the other day on the forums.
Yep, I remember reading that. Yep, and then if I recall right, didn't Gecko say something about that in a P1 podcast a while ago too?
I would be in favor of that, and I actually have a really interesting thing to bring up. I have a great friend named Zooey. Zooey flies an Andorian. He's the variance between the Andorian ships, but anyway, he flies a dual beambank Andorian escort with an Andorian dual beambanks, but he doesn't have the ability to use an Andorian phaser Omnibeam. He's missing out there, so he either has to use orange phaser, use a Tetrion weapon, or use like a turret. And the fact that we're missing the Omni beams for a lot of these rank weapons or unique weapons is a pain.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to keep to a certain color or schema of things.
And that's what I was saying. If you could tear apart something and then have, through crafting, a learn ability to make it, then some of the more rare builds or something that someone's focusing on for color, for abilities, it would cost more to make, and if it had less modifiers, it would continue to have less modifiers, but then you could still craft it and then have exactly the gear that you wanted.
Yeah. Well, let's go back a while ago, back around when R&D first came out, where I think it was like during a winter event, they was going to have a weapon type that would be fairly similar to breeding technology, where you had a space weapon that would do cold damage. That never got released or even talked about. I think it was one of those things that they might have been playing with in the back end, and it just kind of slipped in and through. And they got rid of it after a little bit of it being out. But it was one of the things that they definitely had on the table that they could do.
Yeah.
I would say I'd be in favor of it for reputation weapons at the very least. I'm not I think it would be detrimental to the game, frankly. I don't think Cryptid would ever go for the Lockbox type weapons. I think also the big advantage to doing it with rep weapons is that you don't have to hit Mark II over and over again until you get the mods you want.
Yep.
And that's what I was thinking, because
You can just open them on a low-leveled character and it'll open as a Mark II weapon.
Now, what they could do is they could do what they've done with the level 15 stuff, where it all starts off at a Mark 12, so that there's no way that you can do the Mark 2, so you have to be very specific about how many you want to make, because they're a lot more expensive that way.
True. And I can agree, not the lockbox stuff, because I mean that is pulling people to buy keys and spend money, and it does help the market. So doing lockbox weaponry probably would not work. But for some of these older weapons that, you know, it takes a lot of dilithium to buy them, and then it takes a lot of dilithium because they're rep gear. It takes more tech points to upgrade. If you could instead craft it and have a lower cost and start off lower to upgrade to what you want, I think that would actually bring out more diversity in the builds.
Or how about something at, like, say, for example, once you hit level 20 in whatever school it is, you have the ability to reverse engineer certain items that are flagged for reverse engineering, like, say, a crafted shield of some sort. And then when you make your roll to reverse engineer it successfully, you've learned a plan to be able to make a Nukara shield, for example. And then you have the chance to be able to alter the mods, whether you pay Dill to buy item X to modify this mod for AP resistance or for regen or stack regen up to X number of mods allowed for these type of items. I think that might go over well with the player base. What about you guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I'll be honest, I would love to be able to do things like with some of the reputation weapons. My personal favorite was the Ramen plasmas.
Oh, yes.
But because of the amount of technology points that it took to upgrade those things, I quickly dumped them out for antiproton weapons so that I could get something that was a lot cheaper on par.
I have to agree. If I could craft Romulan plasmas starting at Mark II and start off with what I wanted, even if I had one less modifier, I would love to run Mark 14 Romulan plasmas. It's just at the current cost is 19,000 dilithium per array. And then the tech points can become astronomical when you get to Mark 14 when you're upgrading rarity.
Honestly, if they just dropped the tech points required to get it up to Mark 14, cut them down by a third to half or even a little more than half, I would switch back over to my Ramen plasmas in a heartbeat. And I wouldn't care if it was one of those things. I would get whatever mod that gave me an ultra rare and be happy with it.
Because, I mean, I use those because either Romulan plasmas or biomolecular disruptors would be what I would choose. And if they were less tech points, or I could craft them with maybe a more refined mod list of what I would use, I would run those over anti-proton any day of the week because I like the abilities that they have, and to me they just look nice.
Yeah.
All right, moving on for this one here. We're actually going to go for the Chief of Chiefs report. Take it away, you little SOB. Please tell us, what have you found out lately that is so cheesy? Even the devs will go, man, that is some stinky cheese.
Well, first off, I guess the pilot bridge officer ability, Hold Together. This ability it's pretty good. It's basically a hazard emitters that works a little bit differently, but it's broke in a way. So there's a video that Marshall's going to link here, and it shows using Hold Together and Rock and Roll Together will heal you back up to 100% no matter what. It'll heal you for upwards of 50k, just with the lieutenant rank of the ability.
Wow.
Hang on a second, let me see if I can actually play this thing here. Let me see if I can play it here.
Go ahead,
I've
Phil.
been messing with it in PvP a bit, and it's pretty nasty.
Did you have it queued up at around, what, 10 minutes?
10 minutes and 23 seconds should be it.
You guys see it?
It's not showing up yet.
Hang
Nope.
on.
Which, Vel, you were saying something? I think we might have accidentally cut you off.
I want that on my shit.
Yeah,
Heal to full every 60 seconds is pretty amazing. I mean, all hands on deck and double tap your recorder almost does that, but take another one.
and I think that's why we can't kill SOB in PvP, is he's doing that.
Well, that's not the only thing. There's something we'll get into after Odin gets the video up.
Okay. I just think you
I
have
think
too
we're
much
having
cheese in the
some
cargo hold.
difficulties as far as actually posting the video within the Hangout itself, but I will include it within the channel here as well as the chat box, just so that we will have it later on when we have it. You'll be able to see it there live in living color. I've also posted it out over to the STO devs on Twitter, so they will be able to see it for themselves. Both the torpedo issue as well as the rock and roll / hey, insta heal while I'm invulnerable. Woo, yeah.
Okay,
What else did
and
you find out there?
the next thing that we were going to talk about there was immunities. On the pilot ships, if you have everything maxed out, you can stack a lot of immunities. I'll put a link in here. I found that stacking the T4 Iconian rep trait gives you 3 seconds of immunity every 60 seconds. Pilot maneuvers give you 2 seconds of immunity every 10 seconds. The improved temporal insight trait gives you 4 seconds of immunity every 45 seconds. Rock and rolls 4 seconds every 60 seconds. And then thick of it from the pilot tree is another 4 seconds every 30 seconds. If you stack these all together, you can have 35 seconds of immunity every minute.
Yep.
35 seconds of immunity every minute.
And from what I'm looking at your chart, 20 solid seconds, if they all proc in the proper way, of 20 seconds solid.
Yes, you can be completely immune to feedback pulse, an alpha that's heading your way. It's pretty crazy in PvP.
Yes, as I found out yesterday when we were trying to deal with all this nonsense that's been going on, where it's, hey, look, I'm getting ready to shoot this guy down. Okay, I'll wait, and then I'll shoot again. No, I'll wait. I'll shoot again. I'll wait. Why is he not dying? Why am I getting immunes and dodges all over the place? Oh, wait. All these passive immunities that are in the game now is just, bleh.
It's almost like a god mode of sorts between passives and the activatables. You can almost have a type of god mode now, which I don't think was intended in my opinion, but it's there.
And there's something I didn't include here that really hurts Marshall is you can use the deploy countermeasures ability every 45 seconds, I believe, and that's 8 seconds of immunity to kinetic damage with the rank 3 of that, which is Lieutenant Commander.
Ouch.
Yes,
Also
which
great
means
stuff
I'm not
is
killing
because-
anybody anytime soon in PvP.
Stuff like TBR, Gravwell, all that good stuff is also kinetic, I believe.
Yep.
Are you kidding
Not
me?
sure what feedback pulse is, but yeah, so it's completely immune to side torps right there, basically.
So you may be affecting Gravwell. I wonder if it also affects isokinetic, even though it's a kinetic-based exotic damage.
It probably does. It's really a nice trait or ability. It's another fun one because it also has a confuse ability built into it. So really fun.
Wow.
Really good cheese.
Wow. I'm speechless.
It's not related to immunities, but I do have a little piece of cheese that I can report on.
Please do.
And it's the smallest amount. It's mouse size. But talking with Khan, who we've mentioned earlier, he was noticing that unslotted traits are still activating regardless of being slotted or unslotted. And
That's
I know
a bug with this patch that they're aware of. It's the T4 Iconian rep trait, the Radiant Detonation Module, and then the T4 Omega Graviton Amp that are there even when not slotted.
and that's just he said it wasn't adding that much DPS, but it's there. And it does add a little bit of cheese.
I ran an ISA earlier today. I did 48k, Graviton Amplifier did 148 DPS. It was completely insignificant. But it was
Well,
It
I
does
will say
have.
this. I will say this as a torpedo user. OGA is pathetic. It's just you might as well not even be there in the game.
The unfortunate thing for PvP is the Radiant Detonation Matrix has not been changed yet, so it still strips all of the buffs, meaning that anyone that has T4 Iconian Rep right now has a passive sub-nuke proc on their weapons, basically.
That
I'm
would
using that
explain a
against you
lot.
now.
You don't even need to slot it, man. You get it for free.
This is true.
Congratulations.
This is true.
There's nothing to be able to strip the immunities, right? Right? Wrong. Did you touch on Spence? Did you also touch on the attack pattern beta in torpedoes? Please open that one up.
We found that with the pet torpedoes, that it would apply the beta as soon as the torpedo was launched, and typically the beta would be gone before the torpedo even hit, and it did not reapply the torpedo, or the beta from the torpedo hitting.
That sounds related to the chemosite problems you guys were doing the other day as well.
Yep.
Yeah, very much so. Well, except that with this case, with the high yield, it's pretty much not applying again. With torpedo spread though, it did apply. It applied, wore off, applied again on impact. It wouldn't stack, but it would just stay applied, which would be nice for other people shooting at that target. But hey, look, here's an applied beta on launch, and then here's another applied beta on impact for spread. For high yield, here's an applied beta on launch. You all benefit. The shooter doesn't. Gotta love it.
Yeah.
Now, going into this, we've actually had one of the players, and I wish Snipey was here to do a proper introduction with this gentleman here, but we do have a featured player that we would all like to be able to say, hey, check this guy out. He does a lot of streams every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 5:30 p.m. GMT.
And Saturday.
And Saturday now as well, from what I understand. And yours truly has been invited to show up on his show. Now, I was going to promote this guy before I even got the invitation, so this was already on the schedule.
Congrats.
But, thank you very much. I know. Well, you're going to be next on there anyway.
Really?
So, yes, you are. You're going to promote your own show on his show. So we would like to be able to say thank you to Mr. Valken. Please check him out. People are going to learn a lot of stuff from him. We're going to see a lot of his good piloting that's going to be out there. We're going to see a lot of his different ship builds. He plays very well with the community. He pugs a lot. We all live the pug life. I know you live the pug life. Say it with me. You live the pug life.
Pug life. I've even seen... I was watching some of his stuff the other day, and he actually did a fair breakdown of crafting for weaponry. He has full videos on engineering tank builds, DPS builds, science builds. He goes into a lot of depth with everything that he's doing, and it's valuable information. It's actually good, valuable information. I've liked what I've seen so far. And have an invite, a future invite, even though it hasn't been given formally, to eventually come out there is tremendous. I'm a little humbled, honestly.
Well, we need to get Vel on there too, because seriously, no way, no how we would ever do any sort of showcasing of any sort of ships without showing off the Hulkbuster and the ScimiTank. Gotta have them both.
Absolutely. But yeah, I like this guy. This guy does a lot of good work. I really do like this guy.
Cryptic, if you're listening, pay attention to this guy. Like him. We like him. The community likes him. Like this guy too. Anybody else have anything else they want to say? Closing remarks coming up with the patch here, or what we're looking forward to as far as the series of events, bug squashing, Pearlgate.
There's the thing with dual heavy cannons where when you hit cannon scatterball, your cannon rapid fire, it still removes the innate +10 crit D on the dual heavy cannons.
Still?
Yeah.
Ouch.
I hear there's some bugs with Thaw as well. Virus Toucher mentioned something about mods not always working with that. I'll be looking into that this week. Sometime after I finish figuring out exactly what the heck Intel Fleet does.
Well, yeah, but mods not always work. Oh, speaking of which, there's something I wanted to ask you directly, and I'll need you to speak up on the mic because I'm getting from the audience that they can barely hear you. Like, they literally have to crank up the volume and then drop it when the rest of us talk. Please, could you explain to me the haste buff off of the Iconian set, and does it benefit beams, cannons, or beams and cannons, because obviously kinetic damage doesn't count anymore. So, which one does it what is the haste buff? Where do you get it? And which one does it benefit more, beams or cannons?
Alright, so we're talking the haste buff on the rep set weapons, right?
Yes. And speak up, man. Speak up!
Alright, so what it says is plus 3% firing cycle haste for 6 seconds with that weapon. Now, there's the first problem with that is Spectre, Menoteus, whatever you guys want to call him, informed me the other day that only applies to that specific weapon. So that right there is going to be really off-putting. It would be an amazing buff if it affected everything else. Now, as to what that would benefit more, I think it would actually be slightly detrimental. It would be more advantageous to cannons than it would be to beams. And the reasoning behind that is cannons, as it stands, gain minimal benefit from overcapping. And since you're decreasing the firing cycle time, which increases the rate at which you actually fire shots, so it does about your DPS, you also decrease the amount of time you have for overcapping to be taking place. Cannons spend most of your time recharging, it basically doesn't affect them. Since beams do spend most of their time actively firing and thus benefiting from an overcap, they get a diminished benefit from overcap in return for still firing faster. So I would say that is a bigger benefit to cannons. Now, as to what exactly it does, the first thing is it's a case of cryptic math. It doesn't actually make that by 97% since it's 3% haste, so people have one calculator for it.
All right, so let me break this down here. You're saying that based off of what you've seen so far, this haste buff would benefit cannons more due to the firing cycle. And the way the nature of the firing cycle is for things like interaction with leech, it would be beneficial for cannons to be able to then draw more power to overcap, so that it would do more damage per shot.
No, actually what I'm saying is that the firing cycle haste decreases the effect of overcapping, because the strength of overcapping is based on how many seconds you are actively firing the weapon. As this decreases the seconds you are actively firing the weapon, it decreases the available overcap for either weapon. But since overcapping had a minimal effect on cannons, cannons don't get that detrimental effect nearly as strongly as beams do.
So I'm a little lost here. It kind of sounds like that it would still benefit beams more based off of the innate ability for it to get more raw damage coming out for beams versus cannons.
Raw shots fired per second, and we say it's at 25. You're at 25% haste, basically. It goes through firing cycles 25%. Beams are going to have their raw DPS increased by 25%, as are cannons, before you factor in overcapping. So it's the same benefit, but it decreases the effect of overcapping on beams and cannons. But because cannons weren't getting a significant benefit from it, they don't get a significant detriment from the sudden loss to overcapping. One of the reasons beams are on top is because they overcap incredibly well. This firing cycle haste decreases their ability to overcap effectively.
Oh.
So that makes it better for cannons, because cannons do not get hit. Because cannons and beams gain the same net benefit, but cannons are not hit by the downside of it as much.
So we're drawing, while they're both overcapping, cannons would benefit more from the overcap and the haste because they're not drawing more power constantly when they're firing.
Try and re-explain the overcapping bit. Overcapping is basically your excess power flows back in,
Mm-hmm.
and then what happens is you fire a weapon, it drains that power, and then once it finishes actively firing, it puts that power back in, and then it's got some dead time where it's just standing there not firing. So
Right.
what happens with cannons, specifically dual-headed cannons, everybody's favorites, is the cannon fires for 1 second, and then it goes to recharge. So it has that 1 second period to put power back into the system to get that second shot off at higher power. That means that cannons get a very minimal effect. Beams are actively firing for 4 seconds before they go on their recharge. It means that they have 4 seconds of duration for which to then get that power flowing back in. A very significant overcap. Now, if you say chunk that time in a fourth, cannons lose a fourth of a second of overcapping. Beams in this scenario would lose a whole second of overcapping, which would be a fairly it would be a lot more noticeable than losing the fourth of a second that cannons do in this circumstance. That's why.
So the next cannon that's shooting off of that cycle is going to have potentially more in the tank to be able to put out that damage. It's going to have, like, if you're starting out at 125, first cannon doesn't drain anything. Second cannon starts draining 12, but then it comes back faster to fill it back up, so that the next cannon will be able to fire at that high cap. Versus beams, you're slowly draining the reserves.
That Plasmonic Leech calculates also per cycle, and it refreshes. So what happens is, if I have my Plasmonic Leech and I do, giving 3.5 power per stack, if I fire my first cannon, I lose nothing. I fire my second cannon, I lose 12. I instantly gain the 3.5 back because power is available now to be refreshed back in by that leech, and then on top of that, I have my overcap flowing back in. So between that, I'm probably still at 125. I fire my next cannon, I still lose my 12, I get my 3.5 back because I refreshed the leech stack. So that's one of the other interesting things going on with that. I digress. I would say to summarize, haste is more effective on cannons than on beams, as far as a net benefit, but because it only affects that set weapon, like if I have 5 stacks of it, only that set weapon, not any other radiant beams, not any other beams or any other weapons on the ship are getting that haste benefit, makes that weapon potentially worth slotting, possibly, if the mods weren't even. Because if you look at it, the set weapon doesn't even have good mods. I don't see a reason to really run that set, to be honest, simply because the haste doesn't propagate to your other weapons.
Yeah, that's one of the sad things about what it's not doing right now is it's not going to everything that you have, and if it did that, it would actually become a little more beneficial, but it's only got a short duration that it's at the full charge up.
One of the other really weird things about this is the first set I've ever seen to involve a reputation energy weapon that doesn't have a corresponding boost to that energy weapon type damage.
Yes.
Just very strange.
Thank you very much for the information on that. Pretty much we're going to wrap everything up here right now. Closing comments, closing thoughts, brief. Let's go down the line. Vel, what do you think? What's coming down the pipe as far as bug squashing, events, things that you'd like to see on the pipe?
What I would like to see on the pipe, a bunch of stuff. I would like to see the other half of the bugs I've reported fixed. If I had to prioritize, I would say I want the Warp Shadows bug where that completely breaks thread fixed. As to what I expect to see, I'm expecting that we will literally be getting a lot of lag cleared up in the near future to the point where base mod can come back. I'm expecting a whole lot more featured events, and I would like to see some word as to what this XP boost that we're getting is back. And I would like to test it out and verify that this will actually be a positive effect, because I think we all remember the last time they said they weren't going to actually change anything with the leveling system, and that did not go over well.
Yes, that is true. Timber, what do you think?
Well, like I said earlier, I'm so far with bug squashing, they're hitting it on the head. They are nailing it, and I honestly, I can foresee them, if they keep up the pace. Minor stuff, I know there are still minor bugs as far as textures and stuff like that, but as far as server performance and lag, I could see them knocking out most, if not all of it, here in the next couple of months if they keep up the work they're doing. And I mean, just over 2 weeks, we've seen the benefits, and it is fantastic. And I'm really looking forward to seeing more of it. Feature episodes, I love the fact that they're coming out with, or at least trying to, once a month. It's almost seeming like I'm waiting for the next new episode of Star Trek on television. I'm waiting instead of 1 week, it's 1 month, but I'm waiting. Like, I've actually gotten a little bit excited about seeing the new content and what they're working on. For me, it's a lot of positives. I mean, there are things we fixed, but it looks like they are working on it, and it's refreshing. I like it.
Actually,
Thank you very much. Chief of Cheese, what do you have on your plate?
I would like to be able to do ISAs and go for new DPS records with my main character, which lags out no matter what I do.
Well, you know what? You should get a better computer and better graphics card. And by the way,
I know.
using dial-up.
Yeah.
AOL is not an ISP. Not anymore.
I would also like a beam overload triple tap if possible. It causes lots of rage just with the double tap in PvP, so...
They would soon give all torpedoes a shield pen buff before they do a triple tap BO.
Realistically, I would love to be able to maybe transfer excess spec points off my main character. Instead of getting the lithium, if I could just shift those points to another one of my characters, it would be really nice.
Interesting concept there. You want to talk about, like, say, a half a gain going to an alt instead of just a full gain?
Well, we know that they have items in the system for specialization points. They're over at the console on Jirozana on triple for anyone to go and use.
True.
I don't know how much of a pain it'd be to code that, but if it were possible, it would be really awesome.
Thank you for the insight. Scott, give us your draw.
Honestly, I think one of the biggest things, touching on the content, it is kind of nice seeing something every month, but I think a little more each month, honestly, would be a little bit better thing, because we're getting all these ships. We're seeing... we just saw 9 pilot ships, and we're playing the same old content with those same 9 pilot ships versus having new content to go play those in. We got, 4 missions that we could go and do, and it'd be nice to have more queues, even updating, refreshing the ones, and honestly, giving us the elite content for every single queue. It would be nice to see elite stuff and all those things so that we can actually have a true challenge, because like you get up into the 50, 75K realm with things and higher, and it's like, okay, what next? What am I going to do now? I mean, I could shoot for a higher DPS, but really? So I think those two things, getting the elite content for every single queue, would go a long ways to making people actually have a real challenge in this game versus doing the same old content with the same ships all over the place.
You elitist 1%er. Why would you ever say something like that? Come on.
You'll be wanting no one scenario back.
Well, aside from no-win scenario, funny you brought that up. Aside from no-win scenario, why don't they do something like one of those VOF open battlegrounds? We're going to bring in a ground DPS here to balance things out one of these days. By the way, I had my butt kicked by him. But ground needs some love. Space needs some open map love. I want to see some open map heavy contest here. Like the Dyson Space, primo when it was out there, but that got stale quick. Could we do something a little bit more fast-paced and something where you can go into easy, medium, and hard zones? Like, here are the easy objectives, here are the medium objectives, here are the hard objectives, and not everything has to be nuke X number of tunes. It's escort this, drop this in here, transport this, blow these things up. Here comes a couple capital ships. more dynamic fighting. We want to see that.
I
We
think
want to
they
be
could
able to see
actually.
that.
I think they could actually do that they've built the Iconian War. I think they could do that with, we already have sector patrols in place for Borg and Tholian. I think they could do a variation of sector patrol with Iconians, but some of them be, okay, it's shoot A, shoot B, and shoot C. Some of them could be combat transport missions, like you saw in the Dominion War, where you're not there to fight, you're meant to transport troops.
Yeah, or blockade running.
You could do intelligence runs where you're trying to find a derelict and you're trying to examine technology, and then maybe have to do a short fight to gather it. And I think that would be, in my opinion, a little bit more of a better dynamic, because you'd have more options with the sector patrols, and since we're at war, you'd have more of the war feeling, because you're fighting in sector space, these Iconians, and since it is the war, that would make it feel more like we're at war if we're constantly having to fight them, gather intelligence, escort troop convoys, beam down to random planets, just a random planet maybe every so often on a timer to save that planet from an Iconian invasion. To me, that would be tremendous.
Or doing something like, and tie it in with the DOF missions, like say this research project can then trigger this event over in this system, and then you go to this system, whether space battle, ground battle, or both, do this event, and you get a bonus, whatever bonus you feel like awarding for that.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
that'll contribute to the overall war effort. You make the game feel more dynamic, like each aspect of sector space and each aspect of every planet means something. Now, it may be too late to do it for the Iconian War, but for any other major event/catastrophe that's coming up, this could be something that you could play into it. If you design it well, take your time in designing it well, then implement it a piece at a time, and then just wrap it into one big event. Applause all around. Thank you. Do it.
I think some of the things that they have restrictions on what they can do, like being out in sector space and on the galaxy map itself, they can't really do a lot of that open stuff as much as it needs to. That's why you have these instances that you go into. And if I remember, one of the devs or Trinity pointed that out, saying we got limitations here. So some of this cool stuff that we would love to do in the game, we simply can't because the engine and the dynamics of the game itself doesn't support it.
Well, I understand that. But I was saying like open space. We're open space. Oh, hold on one second, Bell. This is something here. Open space. You start up with like a DOF mission in the beta quadrant, and then that leads you to something that's happening in a planetary system in the alpha quadrant, and then you have to head over into the gamma quadrant to then go into that another system, or like something akin to a briar patch where you are fighting a space combat and then a ground combat, whether it be on low-G asteroids or a planetary system.
The idea that I've heard tossed around was you have like the Iconians are taking over the beta quadrant, and everybody has to take part in like Iconian red alerts or system patrols in that beta quadrant. And if they do enough, and we keep access to the beta quadrant. If not, we lose it for a week or something funny, I don't know. But the point being, they establish with a Delta recruit system that they can track individual actions towards server-wide rewards. Doing something like that to incentivize people to fight the Iconians or whatever bad guy you want to throw out there would I think be really cool. And really tie in the dynamic of, oh yeah, we're at war here.
Yeah, I agree.
Do it.
And that might be one of the things, in my opinion, that might be one of the things that they've done that server-wide thing was for future use of it. I mean, why are you going to make this tool if you only use it one time and be done with it?
Keep some sort of continuity with it, aside from it just being, hey, here's a cool reward. It's, here's something that's going to be useful later on down the road. Oh, this is going to play a role in something even bigger.
Yeah, and that's exactly like my opinion on like the Omega Mark stuff or the Mega Traces, is that's something that they could definitely bring in later on down the road for future events. I mean, what if that becomes another yearly event that they do, where you go around and you get some more Omega Traces from around the place, and You know, you can do that as a great incentive to thank the players for what they've done, because in the end, you got to remember the players is who pays your paycheck in this game. So that's one of the things that they can definitely take all the stuff that they've got implemented and reuse it later on any given time that they want to.
And that's why the sector patrols are already in there. So since they already have the kind of coding for that, I think with a few modifications they could have different types of sector patrols and add the Iconians primarily, even if all they could do with current limitations is, okay, well you got to fight these groups right here, and then you got a capital group, or you have a boss fly in. You could still do an Iconian sector patrol since it is the Iconian War. I think they could implement that, especially with, we still have a good year at least on this season.
Yeah,
It would be nice. I mean, to me it would be. I mean, you're fighting, the dreadnoughts and cruisers all over the Beta Quadrant while you're trying to fight off the Borg and the Tholians.
it's
I'd be
quite
for
possible
it.
that it's even quite possible that that's already on the table for the things that they want to do.
True.
So
You know what? We're going to need an overtime segment just for this sort of stuff. Just to be able to dream up all of this here. Unfortunately, we are definitely going to have to cut this show down here because we're already way on overtime. I'm going to feel like I'm pulling a Bill Maher on this one. Anyway, thank you all for listening. Thank you all to the viewers who came on here live. We do this impromptu, off the cuff, loose, talk about some things that are happening around here, try and keep this relevant. We'd like to thank Vel, our resident mathematician, a.k.a. the Hulk-busting ScimiTank. Please, 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 you are welcome to come back here again, especially when we have some things to discuss about the new weapon sets that will be coming down the pipeline as well. We would like to go over and thank everybody else here coming around, bringing us the ideas, bringing us the content, the things that they want us to discuss. We'd like to do a shout out to a very special player around here, featured STO player Valken. We're going to see you on your stream on Saturday. Actually, no, tomorrow's Friday.
Yes.
Check out his stream. We're going to post all of this fun stuff for him on our comment section here on the video once it goes live, as well as the other videos here that we have, plus the channels for all these guys. Visit them, subscribe to them, listen to what they say because they know what the heck they're talking about. Timber's got a whole bunch of other games going on his channel. SOB's got all sorts of cheese going on there. Make sure you bring your nose clip if you don't like mustard. Scott, we know you love your pilot ships and you just brag about shooting down everybody and their mother. So we'll catch you on there.
Well, the biggest thing I got going on right now is actually a personal DPS challenge, and that's the biggest thing you'll find on my YouTube show going on right now is just that DPS challenge of taking a brand new character from 0 to DPS and not using any money to do this with.
Oh, that's sweet. People, follow it. I'm going to follow this thing here now.
Oh, yeah.
Watch it.
And in fact, right now, as it is, just a little plug-in on this, on the Facebook group that we have, there is a spot where you can vote for the ship that I use. So far, the ship that has been voted the highest is the Galaxy X.
You're welcome.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
We wanted to give him a challenge.
That's too easy. That is too easy.
Sure Ryan did like 40 in a non-Oxtabat Galax. No. It was 80 in a Galax.
80.
It was
It was
40 in
86.
an Oxtabat Galar.
86. 86.
Freaking Ryan.
Jeez.
With phasers.
Yep,
Jeez.
and that's just,
Yes. Vel, now that they're going to fix the game, you got to come back. You got to be a tank, man. Seriously. Because torpedoes generate way too much hate, and while your protege is good, he's not on all the time. So you got to come back.
Dude,
They're
if you
fixing
buy me
the
a
game,
Command
man.
Shard, we'll start talking.
All right, you know what? I can make that happen. I can make that happen. And you know what? If I get lucky enough, we might give away a Command Shashar. If I get lucky enough. We'll find out. We're going to do the show on Wednesday of next week. So for those of you who are listening in, come back in. We'll try and see if we can open up social media to you all so you can do react to what we're saying live, including heckle us and make fun of us, especially Torp Boy over here. Do it up, please. And thank you very much all for listening to the show. We did Star Trek on Thursday. We're going to move it to Wednesday so we can get our Chief Intelligence Officer, I should say, sorry. Chief Intelligence Officer back on the show. From everybody over here, we have our Chief Logistics Officer, Chief Science Officer who's somewhere down under in Australia. We can't find him right now. Probably some dingo got him. We don't know. Was it one of those giant spiders? It's one of those giant spiders, wasn't it? Yes, I know. Scott, our Chief High Mucka Muck, loudmouth plagiarizing, DPS, everybody else, elitist pro over here. Thank you very much for coming and pretty much showing us what's done, how it's done.
Who the heck am I plagiarizing?
You're plagiarizing everybody who does high DPS. That's what you're plagiarizing.
Hey, if anyone is the latest pro, it's the guy that set the engineering DPS record.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, not everybody can be like you. They can't be like you. Thank you to our cheese tactician over here. Spence, please find as much cheese as you can and report it.
Cheese is just... The amount of cheese right now with the new pilot abilities, it's amazing.
All right. This is the show. Thank you all for coming along. Trek Thursdays. We're going to move to Wednesdays. We don't know what the heck to call it. We're just going to say, come and listen. We're out. Thank you. Good night.